Hi, I'm Kirk. Welcome to Good Enough Backyard Beekeeping. Today's discussion is going to be on creating nukes for sale. There are several benefits to doing this. The obvious one would be is creating an income, helping out your apiary in this very expensive hobby or even a business if you want to do it as a business. One of the other benefits of splitting your hive to create nukes is swarm prevention. So by creating or by splitting your hive, your parent hive, you reduce the chances of the hive wanting to swarm because you're basically simulating a swarm, and that will actually increase your honey production. Because if your bees don't all leave in a swarm, which would be about half of your bees, your honey production is going to suffer from that. So this will actually help your honey production. Okay, when I come out of winter, my preferred situation would be to come out of winter with two deeps. At this point, what I'll do is I'll try to locate the queen. I will move the queen down to the bottom box. I will set up the hive with a certain amount of brood, maybe some honey stores if there's still some left over. Maybe there's some nectar if some kind of flow started at that point. But I want to get the queen down in the bottom box, and that's very important to get her down there. And there's a couple of methods of doing that. We won't go over all of those, but basically what you can do is you can shake all your bees down there. If you can't find her, put a queen excluder on top, and then put your second deep on above that. Now, what you want to do is set your hive up in this configuration so that uh, the bees will hop over the brood. You won't have any new eggs um, or small larvae in the upper box because we're going to use that upper box to create our split, and we don't want the bees to think they're queenless and that they can go create a new queen. So we're not going to give them any viable cells to go do that. And what we're going to do is leave this configuration for about a week uh, to to help prevent them to create queen cells in the nukes. As you can see in this slide, we've created a split. You'll see I use a double deep nuke. The reason for this is that I've taken away a full deep off the parent hive. And you can also see that I put a super on there at this point because all foraging bees are going to want to come back to the primary or the parent hive. So in the nuke, you're going to see it's a double deep. Most of your foraging bees are going to go back to the parent hive. So it's very important that you feed these nukes. They'll starve. So feeding is extremely important at this point. Now, a good time to do these splits is just about the time when the flow is starting. You don't have robbing going on at this point. The bees are very happy because they're foraging. Now, some people might ask, why don't you just do a walk away split? That's so much easier. I'm not a fan. I'll tell you why I'm not a fan. You're going to take a frame of eggs, move them over to a nuke. You're going to hope that the bees create queen cells. It's going to take 14 days for a queen to go from a egg to an emerging virgin queen. After the 14 days, she's going to have to go on a mating flight. So now you have to make sure you have enough drones to create a good, viable queen. She's going to go on a mating flight. She's going to come back in well, within about 2 weeks, you might start seeing some eggs. Now, go back to the beginning of the process. Why did this hive create a queen cell? They were desperate. They had nothing. Did they have enough pollen, enough stores? Did they have enough nurse bees to go create this queen? Uh, I would say under less ideal conditions, when you do this walk-away split. So you're gambling on actually getting a good queen out of this. And it took what about 6 weeks for that hive to get up and running. I put brand new mated queens into my splits, and in doing that, within a week or two, that hive is thriving. I have full frames of brood by this point, and I'm starting to get ready to grow this this nuke, or maybe I can split it about this time. In this slide, you'll see I've added another super. The parent hive is thriving. The brood is starting to build up back up again. The nukes are getting very full at this point. They're actually about ready to split. Uh, and why I want to split the nuke is to get that ready for sale. So things are going good. Keep feeding the nuke. You want to grow them as fast as possible, as healthy as possible. Some people add pollen patties. I find it's not even necessary, especially in the springtime. They're bringing in so much pollen that pollen patty is really not necessary. In this slide, you'll see we've separated the nuke that we're going to sell. So I will probably go through the double deep nuke to grab 3 frames of brood. They might be in various stages. I'd actually like to have some open cells in there so the queen can continue to lay eggs. You don't really want her to stop. So at this time, I have established that I have a good, viable queen. I don't believe in just grabbing a couple frames, dropping a queen in there, and selling that to a customer, hoping that everything works. It works most of the time, but I feel like this situation, I've actually seen the health of the queen, how well she lays, and she's off and running at this point. So you saw at the beginning, I put the queen excluder in the hive and left them for about a week. The reason for that is when you create your splits, if you're putting young eggs in there and you do not put a queen in right away, or if the queen pheromones don't tell the hive that, hey, we have a mated queen in here, they'll try creating a queen cell. This happened to me when I bought a nuke several years ago because I was not happy when this happened. The bees created a queen cell. They didn't think they had a queen in there. They didn't accept the new queen. So now I had a situation where I had a queen cell. The queen that was provided with my nuke got kicked out or perished. I'm not sure what happened, but that queen didn't do anything. Now I had a nuke that was basically a bunch of resource frames. I didn't really have a real nuke because I didn't have a queen in there. I tried waiting for the queen to hatch out and go create get mated and all that. It didn't work out. So basically wasted a bunch of money doing that. I felt like I did something wrong. I was a new beekeeper. This method I'm showing you is not guaranteed, but it's giving you a pretty high probability that you're giving your customer a good viable queen. They shouldn't be creating any queen cells. There shouldn't be any queen cells in the hive. When you're going through the hive or the nuke, putting them in their nuke box to be delivered to the customer, you're going to check the frames, make sure there's no queen cells in there. After this hive is set up with 3 frames of brood, a couple frames of food of some sort, I'm going to set this on the hive stand right where the double deep nuke was. In the evening, I'm going to put a plug in it and give this to the customer, the one that paid for it. Or what I'm going to do is first thing in the morning, I'm going to plug up the hive when most of the foreign bees have already returned. To me, this is the way you want to give or sell the customer or deliver the customer their nuke. There will be some foraging bees in there, and they're going to have a good strong nuke. Now you notice that I took the top half, or I took half of that nuke and put it aside. When I put it aside, I gave it a new mated queen. And basically what I did is I created another nuke. So you'll see what happens in the next slide when we deliver it. In this slide, you'll see I've moved the nuke back over to where the nuke was. There will still be foraging bees out doing whatever they do. Not all of the foraging bees return to the hive at night. Some of them stay out, I don't know, partying, doing whatever they do. But they don't all make it back to the hive. And the reason I know that, I've taken a nuke away, and the next day, or for several days, I will have bees flying around that spot looking for their home. So, what better to do than give them a home to go to? So, I move the remaining 5 frames back to the original location with the new queen. I will have foraging bees, not as many, a lot of those left with the nuke. Feed them. You need to keep feeding these nukes because you don't have a strong foraging workforce at this point. Hey, you can see in this slide the parent hive brood is growing. The nuke is growing at this point. They're developing their brood. They're starting to actually store a little bit of honey. And you may not want to take this honey for extraction just because you've been feeding it. And I don't really know how much 1-to-1 actually gets stored. I think most of it gets consumed. But just to be safe, so you're not creating funny honey or whatever that is, I usually don't extract any of the frames from hives that I'm feeding. This slide, you can see the parent hive is doing pretty well at this point. It has 3 supers on there. And actually, this time of the season, I might be considering extracting. These boxes start to get pretty heavy. The other thing is the brood nest is filling up. Now, I have found that at this point, the cycle of emerging brood and queen laying, one deep box, 10 frame box, is enough to keep the queen having adequate space to lay. They will stop storing honey down there. They will put it up in the supers. So this is actually good for honey production, this single deep box method. You may have 3 frames of or 3 boxes of supers at this point. You might have 2. It all depends upon how strong the hive is. But you can take some more brood out of the deep box and actually strengthen your nukes or create new nukes. This method I'm showing you is a typical situation. It doesn't mean that every situation works this way. Some hives will be stronger faster, and some will struggle to grow. Feeding is very important, though. And here again, I will say not necessary to put pollen in there. And you'll actually find that depending upon your hive beetle situation, you're just feeding hive beetles. I usually don't use any pollen substitutes. I just feed them 1-to-1 sugar water, and it stimulates the hive. It makes them believe there's a flow still going on, and there may be a flow. If you're finding that your bees don't take the 1-to-1, they're probably getting a lot of their own natural nectar all on their own. But that also means you had a strong foraging group of bees in that hive. So with these splits, you may not have a strong group of foraging bees established at this time. In this slide, you'll see I've split the nuke again. I can sell that nuke. I can take that nuke and go drop it into a 10 frame deep and start my own new hives. It's up to you to do with the resource what you want. But what you can see here is you're starting to create an income. I personally sell my nukes for over $200. That doesn't mean that I get $200 in the total of that sale. I have to provide a box to put them in, and you can work out whether you do deposits or not. I just give the customer the box. I don't expect to see it come back. You have 5 frames that you put in there, so you have the cost of your frames, but it's still not a bad income. You can go a little higher than $200 if you want. In Connecticut, I can sell a nuke for $230 for with really no problem at all. At this time of year, I'm making this video in January. I have people contacting me at this point wanting to buy nukes. I'm a very small apiary. I am not committing to selling nukes at this point. I find that it really doesn't hurt my sales. When it becomes June, July timeframe, there's people that haven't bought their nukes yet that want to buy their nukes. Personally, I do not have trouble selling my nukes. I sell anywhere from 3 to maybe 5 or 6 nukes. If I'm selling 10 nukes in a season, that's a lot for me. But that's a pretty healthy income too. And you can grow your apiary. In this slide, you can see the parent hive is strong and thriving. So what I'll do is I'll take some brood out of that box. It doesn't hurt honey production because brood does not make honey. It makes future honey. But at this point, your hive should be fairly strong. It's your foraging bees that are bringing in the nectar and pollen. Your nurse bees aren't doing this. Your brood's not doing it. Taking some brood at this point does not hurt your hive. It's kind of like trimming a tree to make it healthy. Taking a little bit of brood out of there, the parent hive will never even know it's gone, and it will help reduce the chances of swarms happening. At this point, if your hive swarms, it's going to go backwards, and it may struggle to recover. Swarm prevention to me is a big deal. You'll see I've added empty frames to the parent hive. They will quickly draw out wax on those frames, especially during the flow. So now I'll have newly waxed frames, or if I just insert comb into there, the queen can just lay right in there. Some people might say you want to put drawn combs so the queen can lay in there right away. I have seen queens lay in very shallow, drawn out comb. I use plastic foundation, and the queen will lay in the embossed areas, and they will quickly build those cells up around the eggs. It's pretty amazing to see that the queen does not need a full established, drawn out comb to lay in. And you'll get your frames drawn out pretty quickly when the queen starts doing this. So give it a try. So you'll see your double deep nuke is growing again. Keep feeding it. The cycle continues on. You can create another nuke for sale, but it's probably getting late in the season by this time. As this gets stronger, you can put this into a deep box, feed it again. This is not a hive that you're going to take honey from this year. You can develop your own new colony at this point. At this point, I am going to be looking towards getting all of my hives into double deeps. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about August time frame. I want to switch back to double deeps. I want to get them built up full of stores, and I want to get them ready for winter into double deeps and starting this cycle all over again. Let's summarize what we've talked about here. One of the points, I didn't really stress it a lot. I did talk about it. Splitting your hives will reduce the tendency for the bees to swarm. Basically, what you're doing is you're creating a false swarm or an artificial swarm for the bees. Take some frames of brood out of there. You can you can split with your older queen and requeen with a new queen at this point if you want. I tend to leave my old queens around probably longer than I should. I get 2 or 3 years out of them. Creating nukes, you are creating a income. It helps pay for this crazy expensive hobby. And you can also grow your apiary. So you don't have to sell the nukes. You can keep them for yourself. Grow your apiary pretty quickly. And the last point, this gets back to the honey production. This gets back to the swarm prevention. If you do not have your bees swarm, you will actually increase your honey production. So this method that I show, actually, you'll end up with a better honey production by creating these splits, as opposed to keeping your hive together, having it swarm, and everything goes backwards from there. So I hope this video helps. Comment, ask me questions about how this works. It's the way to become self-sustainable. I have not bought a nuke or a package or anything like that in several years. I basically take care of my own apiary within itself by splitting my own hives. I hope this video gives you some confidence in creating your own nuke, uh, helping you be self-sustaining in your own apiary. Like and subscribe. Helps the channel out, lets other people see this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next video. This slide shows when I do multiple splits in the very beginning of the season. It's a little bit cooler. You don't want your feed on the outside of the hive. So what I show is doing a 2 frames of brood, 1 frame of food, along with a an empty box and a feeder on the inside. The inside could just be a mason jar. And then insulate the top. That'll help keep the heat in.